I ain't eating no kill. Sci-fi insisted when Lev had suggested it. Those things could have been rotting out here for weeks for all we know. No, Lev told him. Here's what we do. We walk a few miles down the tracks, marking each dead critter with a stick. Then when the next train comes through, we backtrack. Anything we find that's not marked is fresh. Granted, it was a fairly disgusting idea on the surface, but it's really no different from hunting if your weapon were a diesel engine. They build a small fire beside the switch house and dine on roast rabbit and armadillo, which doesn't taste as bad as Lev thought it would. In the end, meat is meat, and barbecue does for armadillo exactly what it does for steak. Smosh, bash. Sci-fi decides to call this hunting method as you eat. That's what I call creative problem solving. Maybe you're a genius after all, Fry. It feels good to have Sai's approval. Hey, is today Thursday, says Lev, just realizing I think it's Thanksgiving. Well, Fry, we're alive. That's plenty to be thankful for. That night up in the small room of the switch house, Sci-Fi asked the big question. Why'd your parents tithe you, Fry? One of the good things about being with Sci-Fi is that he talks about himself a lot. It keeps Lev from having to think about his own life. Except, of course, when Sai asks, Lev answers him with silence, pretending to be asleep. And if there's one thing Sci-Fi can't stand, it's silence, so he feels it himself. Were you a storked baby? Is that it? They didn't want you in the first place and couldn't wait to get rid of you? Lev keeps his eyes closed and doesn't move. Well, I was storked, Sai says. My dad's got me on the doorstep the first day of summer. No big deal. They were ready to have a family anyways. In fact, they were so pleased they finally made it official and got themselves married. Lev opens his eyes, curious enough to admit he's still awake. But after the Heartland War, didn't they make it illegal for men to get married? They didn't get married, they got married. What's the difference? Sci-Fi looks at him like he's a moron. The letter M. Anyways, in case you're wondering, I'm not like my dad's. My compass points to girls, if you know what I mean. Yeah, mine does too. What he doesn't tell Sci-Fi is the closest he's ever been on a date or kissing a girl is slow dancing at his tithing party. The thought of the party brings a sudden sharp jolt of anxiety that makes him want to scream, so he squeezes his eyes tight and forces that explosive feeling to go away. Everything from Lev's old life is like that now, a ticking time bomb in his head. And forget that life, he tells himself. You're not that boy anymore. What are your parents like? Sci-Fi asks. I hate them, Lev says, surprised he said it, surprised that he means it. That's not what I asked. This time, Sai isn't taking silence for an answer, so Lev tells him best he can. My parents, he begins, do everything they're supposed to. They pay their taxes, they go to church, they vote the way their friends expect them to vote, and think what they're expected to think, and they send us to school that raised us to think exactly like they do. Doesn't sound too terrible to me. It wasn't, says Lev, his discomfort building. But they loved God more than they loved me, and I hate them for it, so I guess that means I'm going to hell. Tell you what you get there, save a room for me, okay? Why? What makes you think you're going there? I don't, but just in case, gotta plan your contingencies, right? 2 days later, they find themselves in the town of Scottsburg, Indiana. Well, at least Lev knows that state they're in. He wonders if maybe this is Sci-Fi's destination, but Sci hasn't said anything either way. They've left the railroad tracks, and Sci-Fi tells Lev they have to go south on country roads until they can find tracks heading in that direction. Sci hasn't been acting right. It began the night before, something in his voice, something in his eyes, too. At first, Lev thought it was his imagination, but in the pale light in the autumn day, it's clear that Sci-Fi isn't himself. He's lagging behind Lev instead of leading. His stride is all off, more like a shuffle than a strut. It makes Lev anxious in a way he hadn't been before he met Sci-Fi. Are you ever going to tell me where we're going? Lev asks, figuring that maybe they're close, and maybe that's why Sci is acting weird. Sci-Fi hesitates, weighing the wisdom of saying anything. Finally, he says, we're going to Joplin. That's in the southwest Missouri, so we still got a long way to go. In the back of his mind, Lev registers that Sci-Fi has completely dropped to his old Umber way of talking. Now he sounds like any other kid Lev might have met back home. But there's something really dark and throaty about his voice now, too. vaguely menacing, like the voice of a werewolf before it turns. Where's Joplin? Lev asks. Nothing for you to worry about. But Lev is beginning to worry because when Sci-Fi gets where he's going, Lev will be alone again. This journey was easier when he didn't know the destination. As they walk, Lev can tell Sai's mind is somewhere else. Maybe it's in Joplin. What could be there? Maybe a girlfriend moved there. Maybe he had tracked down his birth mother. Lev has worked up a dozen reasons for Sci-Fi to be on this trip, and there's probably dozen more he can't even thought of. There's a man Main Street in Scottsburg trying to be quaint but just looking tired. It's late mornings as they move through town. Restaurants are gearing up for the lunch crowd. So you're going to use your charms to get us a free meal? Or is it my turn to try? Lev asks. He turns aside, but he's not there. A quick scan of the shops behind him, and Lev sees the door swinging closed. It's a Christmas store. Its windows done up in green and red decorations, plastic reindeer, and cotton snow. Lev can't imagine Sai has gone in there, but when he peers in the window, there he is, looking around like a customer. With the weird way Sci-Fi has been acting, Lev had no choice but to go in as well. It's warm in the store, and it smells of artificial pine. It's kind of the scent you put on cardboard air fresheners. There are fully trimmed aluminum Christmas trees all around, displaying all sorts of holiday decorations. Each tree with a different theme. In another time and place, Lev would have loved wandering through the store like this. A saleswoman eyes them suspiciously from behind the counter. Lev grabs Sai's shoulder. Come on, let's get out of here. But Sai shakes him off and goes over to a tree that's decorated all in glittering gold. He seems mesmerized by all the bulbs and tinsel. There's the slightest twitch beneath his left eye. Sai, whispers Lev, come on, we gotta go to get Joplin. Remember Joplin? But Sai's not moving. The saleswoman comes over. She wears a holiday sweater and a holiday smile. Can I help you find something? No, says Lev. We're just leaving. A nutcracker, says Sai. I'm looking for a nutcracker for my mom. Oh, they're on the brick wall. The woman turns to look across the store, and the moment she does, Sai picks up a dangling gold bauble with a glittering tree and slips it in his coat pocket. Lev just stands there stunned. Sai doesn't even spare Lev a glance as he follows the woman to the back wall where they discuss nutcrackers. There's panic brewing deep down in Lev now, slowly fighting its way to the surface. Sai and the woman chat for a few moments. Then Sai thanks her and comes back to the front of the store. I gotta get money from home, he says in his Sai not Sai voice. I think my mom will like the blue one. You don't have a mom, Lev starts to say, but he doesn't because all that matters is getting out of the shop. All right then, says the saleswoman. You have a nice day. Sai leaves and Lev makes sure he's right behind him just in case Sai suddenly has a phantom urge to go back into the store and take something else. Then the moment the door closes behind him, Sci-Fi takes off. He doesn't just run, he ejects like he's going to burst out of his own skin. He bolts down the block, then into the street, then back again. Cars honk, a truck nearly mows him down. He darts in random directions like a balloon losing air, and then he disappears into an alley far down the street. It's not about the gold Christmas bulb, it can't be. It's a meltdown, it's a seizure, the nature of which Lev can't even begin to guess. I should just let him go, Lev thinks. Let him go, then run in the opposite direction and not look back. Lev could survive on his own. He's gotten street smart enough. He could do it without Sci-Fi, but there's just that look Sai had before he ran, desperation. It just looked like the look in Connor's face the moment he put Lev out of his father's comfortable sedan. Lev turned on Connor. He would not turn on Sci-Fi. With a pace and stride far steadier than Sci-Fi's, Lev crosses the street and makes his way down the alley. Sci-Fi he calls, loud enough to be heard, but not loud enough to draw attention. He glances at dumpsters and doorways. Cyrus, where are you? He comes out at the end of the alley and looks left and right, no sign of him. Then, as he's about to lose hope, he hears Fry. He turns his head over and listens. Fry, I'm over here. This time he can tell where it's coming from, a playground to his right. Green plastic and steel poles, painted blue. There are no children playing. The only sign of life is the tip of Sci-Fi's shoe poking out from behind the slide. Lev crosses the ledge, steps down into the stand that surrounds the playground, and circles the apparatus until Sci-Fi comes into view. Lev almost wants to back away from what he sees. Sai is curled, knees to chest like a baby. The left side of his face is twitching, and his left hand quivers like gelatin. He grimaces as if he's in pain. What is wrong? What is it? Tell me. Maybe I can help you. Nothing, Sci-Fi hisses. I'll be all right. but to Lev, he looks like he's dying. In his shaking left hand, Sci-Fi holds the ornament he stole. I didn't steal this, he says. I said I didn't steal this. He smashes the heel of his right hand against the side of his head. It wasn't me. Okay, whatever you say. Lev looks around to make sure they're being unobserved. Sai quiets down a bit. Cyrus Finch doesn't steal, never did, never will. It's not my style. He says it even as he looks at the evidence right there in his hand, but in the second the evidence is gone, Sci-Fi raises his right fist and smashes it in his left palm, shattering the bulb. Gold glass tinkles to the ground. Blood begins to ooze from his left palm and his right knuckles. Sai, your hand. Don't worry about that. I want you to do something for me. If I do it before I change my mind, Lev nods. See my coat over there? I want you to look at the pockets. Sci-Fi's heavy coat is a few yards away, tossed over the seat of a swing. Lev goes to the swing set and picks up the coat. He reaches into the inside pocket and finds, of all things, a gold cigarette lighter. He pulls it out. Is that it, Sai? You want a cigarette? If a cigarette would bring Sci-Fi out of this, Lev would be the first to light it for him. There are things far more illegal than cigarettes anyways. Check for the other pockets. Lev searches the other pockets for a pack of cigarettes, but there are none. Instead, he finds a small treasure trove. Jeweled earrings, watches, a gold necklace, a diamond bracelet, things that shimmer and shine in the dim daylight. Sai, what did you do? I already told you it wasn't me. Now go take all that stuff and get rid of it. Get rid of it and don't let me see where you put it. He then covers his eyes like it's a game of hide and seek. Go before he changes my mind. Lev puts everything out of the pocket and cradling in his arms and runs to the far end of the playground. He digs in the cold sand and drops it in, kicking the sand back over it. When he's done, he smooths it over the side of his shoe and drops a scattering of leaves above it. He goes back to Sci-Fi, who's sitting there just like Lev left him, hands over his face. It's done, Lev says. You can look down. When Sai takes his hands away, there's blood all over his face and the cuts in his hands. Sai stares at his hands and then looks at Lev helplessly, like a kid who just got hurt in a playground. Lev half expects him to cry. You have to wait here, Lev says. I'll go get some bandages. He knows he'll have to steal them. He wonders what Pastor Dan would say about all the things he's been stealing lately. Thank you, Fry says. You did good. And I ain't gonna forget it. The old umber is back in his voice. The twitching has stopped. Sure thing, says Lev with a comforting smile, and he heads off to a pharmacy. What Sci-Fi doesn't know is that Lev has kept a single diamond bracelet which he now hides inside of his pocket. His not-so-white jacket. Lev finds them a place to sleep that night. It's the best they've had yet, a motel room. Finding it wasn't all that hard to do. He scouted out a run-down motel without many cars out front. Then it was just a matter of finding an unlocked bathroom window in an occupied room. As long as they kept the curtains drawn and the lights off, no one would know they were there. My genius keeps rubbing off on you, Sci-Fi tells him. Sides back to his old self like the incident that morning never happened. Only it did happen, they both know it. Outside, they hear a car door open. Lev and Sai prepare to bolt as if a key turns in the motel room lock, but it's another door. They hear it opening a few rooms away. Sai shakes out his tension, but Lev doesn't relax, not yet. I want to know about today, Lev says. It's not a question, it's a request. Sai's unconcerned. Ancient history, he says. Leave the past in the past and live for the moment. That's wisdom you can take to the grave and dig it up when you need it. What if I dig it up right now? Lev takes a moment to let it sink in. He then reaches into his pocket and pulls out the diamond bracelet. He holds it in front of him, making sure the street light spilling through a slit in the curtain catches the diamonds so they glisten. Where'd you get that? Sai's voice had lost all the playfulness it had a second ago. I kept it, Lev says calmly. I think it might come in handy. I told you to get rid of it. It wasn't yours to get rid of. After all, you said it yourself. You didn't steal it. Lev twists the bracelet so a diamond reflects a sparkle of light right into Sci-Fi's eye. Without the room lights on, Lev can't see much, but he can swear he sees Sci-Fi's cheek starting to twitch. Sci stands up, looming over Lev. Lev stands as well, a full head shorter than Sci-Fi. You gonna take that out of my face, says Sci-Fi, or I swear I'm gonna pound you into pork rinds. Lev thinks he might actually do it. Sci-Fi clenches his fist with the bandages. He looks like a boxer, hands wrapped before putting on gloves. Still, Lev doesn't back down. He just dangles the bracelet. It sends little twinkling lights flitting around the room like a lazy disco ball. I'll put it away if you tell me why this bracelet and all those things wound up in your pocket. Put it away first and then I'll tell you. Fair enough. Lev slips the bracelet back to his pocket and waits, but Sci-Fi isn't talking, so Lev gives him a little prompt. What's his name? Lev asks. Or is it a she? Sci-Fi's shoulders slump into feet. He crumbles into a chair. Lev can't see his face at all now in the darkness, so Lev listens closely to his voice. As long as it still sounds like Sai's voice, he knows that Sai's okay. Lev sits himself on the edge of the bed, a few feet away from Sai, and listens. It's a he, Sai says. I don't know his name. He must have kept his name in another part of his brain. All I got was his right temporal lobe, and that's only an eighth of the cerebral cortex, so I'm 7/8 me and 1/8 him. I figured that's what it was. Lev had realized what was going on with Sai even before he stole the bandages from the pharmacy. Sai gave him the clue himself. Do it before he changes my mind, Sai had said. So was he a shoplifter? He had problems. I guess those problems are why his parents had him unwound in the first place, and now one of his problems is mine. Wow, that sucks. Sci-Fi laughs bitterly. Yeah, Fry, it does. It kind of like what happened to my brother Ray, says Lev. He went to this government auction thing, ended up with 10 acres on a lake, and it cost next to nothing. Then he finds out the land came with a bunker full of toxic chemicals seeping into the ground. Now he owned it, so now it was his problem. Cost him 10 times the cost of the land to clean up the chemicals. Sucker, says I. Yeah, but then those chemicals weren't in his brain. Sai looks down for a moment. He's not a bad kid, he's just hurting really bad. The way Sai's talking, it's like the kid is still there, right in the room with them. He's got this urge about him to grab things, like an addiction, you know? Shiny things mostly. It's not like he really wants them, it's just that he needs to snap them up. I figure he's a kleptomaniac. That means, hell, you know what it means. So he talks to you? No, not really. I didn't get the part of him that uses words. I get feelings mostly, and sometimes images, but usually just feelings, urges. When I get an urge, I know when it's coming from. I know it's him. Like the time I saw this Irish setter on the street and I wanted to go over and pet it. I'm not a dog person, but all of a sudden, I just had to pet the pooch. Now that Sai's talking about it, he can't stop. It's all spelling out like water over dam. Petting that dog was one thing, but the stealing was another. The stealing makes me mad, I mean. Here I am, a law-abiding citizen that never took nothing that didn't belong to me my whole life, and now I'm stuck with this. There's people out there like that lady in the Christmas store. They see an Uber kid like me and they automatically assume I'm up to no good. And now thanks to this kid in my head, they're right. And you want to know what's funny? This kid is Lily Sienna like you, blonde hair, blue eyes. Hearing that surprises Lev. Not the description, but the fact that Sai can describe him at all. You know what he looked like? Sci-Fi nods. I can see him sometimes. It's hard, but sometimes I can. I close my eyes and imagine myself looking into a mirror. Usually I see myself reflected, but once in a while I can see him. It's only for an instant, kind of like trying to catch a bolt of lightning after you already seen the flash. But other people, they don't see him when he stills. It's me they see, my hands grabbing. The people who matter know it's not you, your dad's. They don't even know about this, Sai says. They think they did me a favor sticking me with this brain chunk. If I tell them about it, they'd feel guilty until the end of time, so I couldn't tell them. Lev doesn't know what to say. He wishes he'd never brought it up. He wished he hadn't insisted on knowing. Most of all, he wishes Sai didn't have to deal with this. He's a good guy. He deserves a better break. And this kid, he doesn't even understand he's part of me, Sai says. It's like the ghosts don't know that they're dead. He keeps trying to be him, and I can't understand why the rest of him ain't there. All of a sudden, Lev realizes something. He lived in Joplin, didn't he? Sai doesn't answer for a long time. That's how Lev knows it's true. Finally, Sai says, there's some things he's still got locked up in my brain that I can't get at. All I know is once he's got to get to Joplin, so I gotta get there too. Once we're there, maybe he'll leave me alone. Sci-Fi shifts his shoulders, not in a shrug, but in an uncomfortable roll, like when you get an itch in the back or a sudden shiver. I don't want to talk about him no more. He's 1/8. Feels a whole lot better than when I spend time hanging around in his gray matter. Lev wants to put his arm around Sai's shoulder, but an older brother to comfort him. but he just can't bring himself to do it. Instead, he pulls the blanket from the bed and wraps it around Sai as he sits in the chair. What's this all about? He's making sure you two stay warm, and then he says, don't worry about anything, you've got it under control. Sci-Fi laughs. You can't even take care of yourself, and now you think you're going to take care of me? If it weren't for me, you'd be still chowing down other folks' garbage back at the mall. That's right, but you helped me, and it's my turn to do the same for you. And I'm going to get you the job plan. 22. Risa. Risa, Megan Ward, watches everything around her closely and carefully. She's seen enough as Tahoe to know that survival rests on how observant you are. For 3 weeks, she, Connor, and a mixed bag of unwinds have been shuttled from one safe house to another. It's maddening, for there seems to be no end in sight to this relentless underground railroad of refugees. There are dozens of kids being moved around, but there are never more than 5 or 6 at a time in given space safe house. And Risa rarely sees the same kid twice. The only reason she and Connor have been able to stay together is because they pose as a couple. It's practical and it serves both their interests. What was that expression? The devil you know is better than the one you don't. Finally, they're dumped in a huge empty warehouse in a thundering air traffic zone. Cheap realty for hiding unwanted kids. It's a Spartan building with a corrugated steel roof that shakes so badly when a plane passes overhead she half expects it to collapse. There are almost 30 kids here when they arrive. Many of them are kids Risa and Connor had come across over the past few weeks. This is a holding tank, she realizes, a place where all the kids are warehoused in preparation for the final journey. There are chains on the doors to keep anyone unwanted out, and to keep anyone too rebellious in. There are space heaters that are useless since all the heat is lost to the high warehouse roof. There's only one bathroom with a broken lock, and unlike many of the safe houses, there's no shower, so personal hygiene is put on hold for the moment they arrive. Put that all together with a gang of scared, angry kids, and you've got a power keg waiting to explode. Perhaps that's why the people who run the show all carry guns. There are 4 men and 3 women in charge, all of the militarized versions of the folks who, like Sonia, run the safe houses. Everyone calls them the Fatigues, not just because they have a penchant toward khaki military clothing, but also because they seem exhausted. Even so, they have a high-tension determination about them, Risa admires. A handful of new kids arrives almost every day. Risa watches each group of arrivals with interest and notices that Connor does too. She knows why. You're looking for love too, aren't you? She finally says to him. He shrugs. Maybe I'm just looking for the Akron AWOL, just like everyone else. This made Risa chuckle. Even in safe houses, they had heard the inflated rumors of AWOL from Akron, who escaped from a juvie caught by turning his own tranq pistol against them. Maybe he's on his way here, kids would whisper around the warehouse, like they were talking about a celebrity. Risa had no idea how the rumor started since it was never in the news. She got a bit annoyed that she's not included in the rumor. It ought to be a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing. The rumor mill is definitely sexist. So, are you ever going to tell them you're the Akron AWOL? She quietly asked Connor. I don't want that kind of attention. Besides, they wouldn't believe me anyway. They're all saying the Akron AWOL is the big birth superhero. I don't want to disappoint them. Lev doesn't show up with any of the batches of the new kids. The only thing that arrives with them is an increase of tension. 43 kids by the end of their first week, and there's still 1 bathroom and no shower and no answer as to how long this will last. Relentlessness hangs as heavy as body odor in the air. The Fatigues do their best to keep them all fed and occupied, if only to minimize friction. There are a few crates of games, incomplete decks of cards, and dog-eared books that no library wanted. There are no electronics, no balls, nothing that would create or encourage noise. If people out there hear you, then you're all done for. The Fatigues remind them as often as they can. Risa wonders if the Fatigues have lives separate and apart from saving unwinds, or if this endeavor is their life's work. Why are you doing this for us? Risa asked one of them during their second week. The Fatigue had been almost rude in her answer, like giving a soundbite to a reporter. Saving you and others like you is an act of conscience, the woman had said. Doing it is its own reward. The Fatigues all talk like that. Big picture speak. Risa calls it, seeing the whole and none of the parts. It's not just in their speech, but in their eyes as well. When they look at Risa, she can't tell they really don't see her. They seem to see the mob of Unwinds more as a concept rather than a collection of anxious kids. And so they miss all the subtle social tension tremors that can shake things just as powerful as the jets shake the roof. By the end of this second week, Risa had a pretty good idea where trouble was brewing. It all revolves around one kid she hoped she'd never see again, but he turned up shortly after she and Connor had arrived. Roland. Of all the kids here, he's by far the most potentially dangerous. The most troubling thing is that Connor hasn't exactly been the image of emotional stability himself this past week. He'd been all right in the safe houses. He held his temper. He hadn't done anything too impulsive or irrational. Here, however, in the midst of so many kids, he's different. He's irritable and defiant. The slightest thing can set him off. He's been in half a dozen fights already. She knows this is why his parents must have chose to have him unwound. A firestorm temper can drive some parents to desperate measures. Common sense tells Risa to distance herself from him. Their alliance has been one of necessity, but there's no reason to ally herself with him anymore. Yet day after day, she keeps finding herself drawn to him and worried about him. She approaches him shortly after breakfast one day, determined to open his eyes to a clear and present danger. He's sitting by himself, etching a portrait into the concrete floor with a rusty nail. Risa wishes she could say it was good, but Connor's not much of an artist. It disappoints her because she desperately wants to find something redeeming about him. If he were an artist, then he could relate on a creative level. She would talk to him about her passion for music, and he would get it. As it is, she doesn't think he even knows or cares that she plays piano. "Who are you drawing?" she asks. "Just a girl I knew back home," he says. Risa silently suffocates her jealousy in a quick emotional vacuum. Someone you cared about? Sort of. Risa takes a better look at the sketch. Her eyes are too big for her face. I guess that's because it's her eyes that I remember the most. And her forehead's too low. The way you've drawn it, she has no room for her brain. Yeah, well, she wasn't all that bright. Risa laughs at that, and it makes Connor smile. When he smiles, it's hard to imagine he's the same guy who got into all those fights. She gauges whether or not he'd be open to hear what she has to say to him. He looks away from her. "Is there something you want, or are you just an art critic today?" "I was wondering why you're sitting by yourself." "Oh, so you're my shrink. We're supposed to be a couple if we're going to keep up the image. You can't be entirely antisocial." Connor looks over at the other groups of kids busy in various morning activities. Risa follows his gaze. There's a group of kids who hate the world and spend all day spewing venom. There's a mouth-breathing kid who does nothing but read the same comic book over and over again. Maya is paired off with a glum, spiked-haired boy named Vincent, who's all leather and body piercings. He must be her soulmate because they make out all day, drawing a cluster of other kids who sit there and watch. "I don't want to be social," Connor says. "I don't like the kids here." "Why?" Risa asks. "They're too much like you. They're losers." "Yeah, that's what I mean." He gives her a half-hearted, dirty look, then looks down at his drawing, but she can tell he's not thinking about the girl. His head is somewhere else. I'm off by myself, then I don't get into fights." He puts down the nail, giving up his etching. "I don't know what gets into me. Maybe it's all the voices, maybe it's all the bodies moving around me. It makes me feel like I've got ants crawling inside my brain and I know I want to scream. I can stand it just so long and then I blow." It happened even at dinner. Everyone was talking all at once at the dinner table. One time we had family over, and the talk got me so crazy I hurled plate at the china hutch. Glass blew everywhere. Ruined the meal. My parents asked me what got into me, and I couldn't tell them. That Connor is willing to share this with her makes her feel good, makes her feel close to him. Maybe now that has opened up, he'll stay open long enough to hear what she has to tell him. "There's something I want to talk about, yeah?" Risa sits beside him, keeping her voice low. "I want you to watch the other kids, where they go, who they talk to." "All of them?" "Yeah, but at a time. After a while, you'll start to notice things like what? Like the kids who eat first are the ones who spend the most time with Roland, but he never goes to the front of the line himself. Like the way his closest friends infiltrate the other cliques and get them into arguments so they break apart. Like the way that Roland is especially nice to the kids that everyone feels sorry for, but until nobody feels sorry for them anymore, he uses them. Sounds like you're doing a class project on him." "I'm being serious. I've seen this before. He's power hungry, he's ruthless, and he's very smart." Connor laughs at that. Roland, he couldn't think himself out of a paper bag. No, but he could think everyone else into one, and then crush it. Clearly that gives Connor pause for thought. Good, thinks Risa. He needs to think, he needs to strategize. Why are you telling me this? Because you're his biggest threat? Me? Yeah, you're a fighter. Everyone knows that, and they also know that you don't take crap from anyone. Have you heard kids mumbling about how someone ought to do something about Roland? Yeah. They only say that when you're close enough to hear it, expecting you to do something about it, and Roland knows it. He tries to wave her off, but she gets in his face. Listen to me, because I know what I'm talking about. Back at Staho, there are always dangerous kids who bullied their way into power. They always do it because they knew exactly who to take down and when. And the kid they took down the hardest was the one with the greatest potential for taking them down. She can see Connor curling his hand into a fist. She knows she's not getting through to him. He's getting the wrong message. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. Now, you can't take the bait. That's what he wants. He'll do everything within his power to put you in a fight, but you can't do it. Connor hardens his jaw. You think I can't take him in a fight? Risa grabs his wrist and holds it tight. A kid like Roland doesn't want to fight you. He wants to kill you. Number 23, Connor. As much as Connor hates to admit it, Risa's been right about a lot of things. Her clarity of thoughts has saved them more than once, and now that he knows what to look for before it, her take on Roland's secret power structure is right on target. Roland is a master of structuring life around him for his own benefit. It's not the overt bullying that does it either. It's the subtle manipulation of the situation. The bullying almost acts as a cover for what's really going on. As long as people see him as dumb, tough guy, they don't notice the more clever things he does. Each as endearing himself to one of the fatigues by making sure the man sees him giving his food to one of the younger kids. Like a master chess player, even every move Roland makes has purpose, even if the purpose isn't immediately clear. Risa wasn't just right about Roland, she was right about Lev, or at least the way Connor feels about the kid. Connor hasn't been able to get Lev out of his mind. For the longest time, he had convinced himself it was merely out of a desire for revenge, as if he couldn't wait to get even with them. But each time a new group of kids shows up and Lev isn't among them, a sense of despair worms its way through Connor's gut. It makes Connor angry that he feels this way, and he suspects that as part of his anger fuels the fights he gets into. The fact is, Lev hadn't just turned them in, he turned himself in as well, which means that Lev is probably gone, unwound into nothing, his bones, his flesh, his mind shredded and recycled. This is what Connor finds so hard to accept. Connor had risked his life to save Lev, just as Connor had done for the baby on the doorstep. Well, the baby had been saved, but Lev had not. And although he knows he can't be held responsible for Lev's unwinding, he feels as if it's his fault. So he stands there with secret anticipation each time there's a group of new arrivals, hoping beyond hope they'll have self-righteous, self-important, pain in the ass Lev still alive. Number 24, Risa. The Fatigues arrive with Christmas dinner an hour late. It's the same old slop, but the Fatigues wear Santa hats. And impatience rules the evening. Everyone's so hungry, the crowd noisily all around. Like it's a food delivery in a famine, and to make it worse, there are only 2 Fatigues there tonight to serve the meal instead of the usual 4. Single line, yell the Fatigues. There's enough for everybody, ho ho ho. But tonight's is not a matter of getting enough, it's a matter of getting it now. Reese is just as hungry as the others, but she knows that the meals are the best time to have some privacy in the bathroom without someone bursting in through the unlocked door or simply pouring repeatedly to get you faster. Tonight, with everyone clamoring for their holiday hash, there's no one at the bathroom at all. So, putting her hunger on hold, she moves away from the crowd, across the warehouse toward the bathroom. Once inside, she hangs the makeshift occupied sign on the doorknob and pushes the door closed. She takes a moment to examine herself in the mirror. She doesn't like the straggly-haired, raggedy girl she's become. So she doesn't look at herself for too long. She washes her face and then, because there are no towels, dries with her sleeve. Then before she turns around the toilet, she hears the door creak open behind her, and she hears a stifle of gas. It's Roland who has entered the bathroom, and now closes the door gently behind him. And then Risa realizes her mistake. She should have never came here alone. Get out, she says, for the moment, but he's caught her by surprise. No need to be harsh. Roland moves towards her in a slow predatory stride. We're all friends, right? And since everyone's eating dinner, I've got some quality time to get to know each other. Stay away from me. Our options She scans, but she realizes it's a tight space. There's only one door and nothing she can use as weapons. Her options are limited. Now he's dangerously close. Sometimes I feel like having dessert for dinner. How about you? The second he's in range, she acts quickly to hit him, to knee him, or to inflict any kind of pain that would distract him enough for her to fly out of the door. His reflexes are simply too fast. He grabs her hand, pushes her back against the cold green tile bowl, and presses his hip against her so that his knee can't reach his mark. Annie grins as if it's easy and puts a hand on her cheek. The shark tattooed on his forearm is inches away and seems ready to attack. So what do you say we have some fun and make sure you don't get unwound for 9 months? Risa has never been a screamer the way she saw it. Screaming is a sign of weakness, a sign of defeat. She has to admit defeat, for although she has lots of experience warding off creeps, Roland has even more experience being one. So she screams. She lets a blood curdler at the top of her lungs, but her timing is as bad as it could be as jets rum overhead. You gotta learn to enjoy life. Let's call this lesson 1. That's when the door swings open, and over Roland's massive shoulder, Risa sees Connor standing at the threshold, eyes blazing. She's never been happier to see anyone. Connor, stop him. Roland sees him too, catching his reflection in the bathroom mirror, but doesn't release Risa. Well, says Roland, this isn't awkward. Connor makes no move to tear him away. He just stands there on the threshold, his rage. His hands are clutched into fence. They just hang there, limply by his side. What's wrong with him? Roland winks at Risa, then calls over his shoulder to Connor, better get out if you know what's good for you. Connor steps on the threshold, but he still doesn't move toward them. Instead, he goes to the sink. Mind if I wash up for dinner? Risa waits for him to make a sharp, sudden move, catching Roland off guard, but he doesn't. He just watches his hands. Your girlfriend had her eye on me since Sonia's basemate. That was Roland. You know that, don't you? Roland dries his pants with his hands. You can do whatever you like. Risa and I broke up this morning. Should I turn off the light and then leave? The betrayal was so unexpected. So complete. Risa doesn't know who to hate more, Roland or Connor, but then Roland eases his grip on her. But now the mood's ruined, isn't it? He looked over. Hal, I was just kidding anyways. I wouldn't have done anything. He backs away and offers a smile of his again. How's about we wait until you're ready? Then he struts out just as boldly as he came in, bumping Connor's shoulder all the way out as parting shot. All of her confusion and frustration unleashes at Connor, and she pushes him back into the wall, shaking him. What was that? You're going to let him do it? You're going to stand there and let it happen? Connor pushes her off of him. Didn't you warn me not to take the bait? What? He didn't follow you to the bathroom. He pushed past me first. He made sure I knew he was following you there. This whole thing wasn't about you. It's about me. Just like you said, he wanted me to catch him. He wanted to make me go crazy to get me fighting mad, so I didn't take the bait. Risa shakes her head in disbelief, but reeling from the truth of it. But what if he... But he didn't, did he? And now he won't, because if he thinks you and I are broken up, you're more useful to him if you're on his side. He'll still be after you, but from now on, I'll bet he'll be killing you with kindness. All the emotions rebounding madly through Risa finally come to rest in an unfamiliar place, and tears burst from her eyes. Connor steps forward to comfort her, but she pushes him away with the force she would have used against Roland. Get out, she yells. Just get out. Connor throws up his hands, frustrated. Fine, I guess I should just gone to dinner and not come in at all. He leaves and she closes the door behind him. In spite of the line of kids not waiting for the bathroom, she sits on the floor with her back against the door so that no one can see it, and she tries to get her emotions under control. Connor had done the right thing. For once, he had seen the situation more clearly than she, and he had probably ensured that Roland wouldn't have physically threatened her again, at least for a while. And yet, there's still a part of her that can't forgive him for just standing there. After all, heroes are supposed to behave in very specific ways. They're supposed to fight even if it means risking their life. This is the moment Risa realizes that even with all of his troubles, she sees Connor as a hero. 25. Connor. Holding his temper in that bathroom was perhaps the hardest thing Connor had to ever do. Even now, as he storms away from Risa, he wants to lay into Roland, but blind rage is not what the moment needs, and Connor knows it. Risa's right. A brutal all-out fight is exactly what Roland wants. And Connor's heard from some of the kids that Roland has fashioned himself a knife out of some metal he found lying around the warehouse. If Connor launches at him with a rage of swinging fists, Roland will find a way to end it with a single deadly thrust, and he'll be able to get away with it, claiming it was self-defense. Whether Connor can take him in a fight isn't the question, even against the knife. Connor suspects he might be able to either turn the blade against him or Roland out in some other way before he has a chance to use it. The question is this: is Connor willing to enter a battle that must end with one of them dead? Connor might be a lot of things, but he's no killer, so he holds his temper and plays it off cool. This is new territory for him. The fighter in him screams foul, but another side of him, a side that's growing steadily stronger, enjoys the exercise of silent power. And it is power because Brolin now behaves exactly the way he and Risa want him to. Connor sees Brolin offer his dessert to Risa that night as an apology. She doesn't accept it, of course, but it doesn't change the fact that he offered it. It's as if Brolin thinks his attack on her could be wiped away by feigning remorse. Not because he's actually sorry for what he did, but because it serves Roland's needs to treat her well now. He has no idea that Risa and Connor have him on an invisible leash. Connor knows it will only be a matter of time, however, until he chews his way through it. Destinations, Part 4. The following is a response from eBay with regard to a seller's attempt to auction his soul online in 2001. Thank you for taking the time to write eBay with your concerns. I'm happy to help you further. If the soul does not exist, eBay could not allow the auctioning of the soul because there'd be nothing to sell. However, if the soul does exist, then in accordance with eBay's policy on human parts and remains, we would not allow the auctioning of human souls. The soul would be considered human remains, and although it's not specifically stated on the policy page, human souls are still not allowed to be listed on eBay. Your auction was removed appropriately and will not be reinstated. Please do not relist this item with us in the future. You may receive our policy at the following link, pages.ebay.com. It is my pleasure to assist you. Thank you for choosing eBay. Okay, 26, pawnbroker. The man inherited the pawn shop from his brother, who had died of a heart attack. He wouldn't have kept the place, but he inherited it while he was unemployed. He figured he could keep it and run it until he could find a better job. That was 20 years ago. Now he knows it's a life sentence. A boy comes into his shop one evening before closing. Not his usual type of customer. Most folks come into the pawn shop down on their luck, ready to trade in everything they own, from TVs to family heirlooms, in exchange for a quick cash. Some do it for drugs, others have more legitimate reasons. Either way, the pawnbroker's success is more based on the misery of others. It doesn't bother him anymore. He's grown used to it. This boy is different, though. Sure, there are kids who come in hoping to get a good deal on items that were never claimed, but there's something about this kid that's markedly off. He looks more clean-cut than the kids usually turn up in his store, and the way he moves, even the way he holds himself, is refined and graceful, deliberate and delicate. Like he's lived his whole life as a prince, is now pretending to be the piper. He wears a puffy white coat, but is a bit dirty. Maybe he's the piper after all. The TV on the counter plays a football game, but the pawnbroker isn't watching the game anymore. His eyes are on it, but his mind is keeping track of the kid as he meanders through the shop, looking at things like he might want to buy something. After a few minutes, the kid approaches the counter. "What can I do for you?" The pawnbroker asks, genuinely curious. "This is a pawn shop, isn't it? Doesn't it say so on the door? So that means you trade things for money, right?" The pawnbroker sighs. The kid's just ordinary, after all, just a little more naive than the other kids who show up here trying to hawk their baseball card collections or whatever. Usually they want money for cigarettes or alcohol or something else they don't want their parents to know about. The kid doesn't look like the type for that, though. "We loan money and take objects of value as collateral," he tells the kid, "and we don't do business with minors. You might want to buy something fine, but you can't pawn anything here, so take your baseball card somewhere else." "You said I had baseball cards." The kid then reaches into his pocket and pulls out a bracelet, all diamonds and gold. The pawnbroker's eyes all pop out of his skull as the kid dangles it from his fingers. Then the pawnbroker laughs. "Would you steal that from your mama, kid?" The kid's expression, it stays diamond hard. "How much will you give me for it? How about a nice boot out the door?" Still, the kid shows no sign or fear or disappointment. He just lays the bracelet on the worn wooden counter with the same princely grace. "Why don't you just put that thing away and go home? I'm an Unwind." "What?" "You heard me." This throws the pawnbroker for a loop for a whole lot of reasons. First of all, runaway unwinds who show up at his shop never admit it. Secondly, they always appear desperate and angry, and the stuff they have to sell is shoddy at best. They're never this calm, and they're never this angelic. "You want to unwind?" The boy nods. "The necklace is stolen, but not from anywhere around here." Unwinds never admit that their items are stolen. Those other kids always come in with the most elaborate stories as to who they are and why they're selling. The pawnbroker will usually listen to their stories for entertainment value. If it's a good story, he'll just throw the kid out. If it's a lousy story, he'll call the police and have them picked up. This kid, however, doesn't have a story. He comes only with the truth. The pawnbroker doesn't quite know how to deal with the truth. "So," says the kid, "are you interested?" The pawnbroker just shrugs. "Who you are is your business, and like I said, I don't deal with minors. Maybe you'll make an exception." The pawnbroker considers the kid, considers the bracelet, then looks at the door to make sure no one else is coming in. "I'm listening. Here's what I want. $500 cash, now. Then I leave like we never met, and you keep the bracelet." The pawnbroker puts on his well-practiced joker face. "Are you kidding me? This piece of junk? Gold plates or cone? Instead of diamonds, poor workmanship, I'll give you $100, not a penny more." The kid never breaks eye contact. "You're lying." Of course, the pawnbroker's lying, but he resents the accusation. "How about if I turn you into the juvie cops right now?" The kid reaches down and takes the bracelet from the table. "You could," he says, "but then you won't get this. The police will." The pawnbroker strokes his beard. Maybe this kid isn't as naive as he looks. "If it were a piece of junk," the kid says, "you wouldn't have offered me 100. I bet you wouldn't have even offered me anything." He looks at the necklace dangling from his fingers. "I really don't know what something like this is worth, but I bet it's worth thousands. All I'm asking is 500, which means whatever it's worth, you're getting a great deal." The pawnbroker's face is gone. He can't stop staring at the bracelet. It's all he can do to not drool over it. He knows what it's really worth, or at least what he can guess. He knows where he can fence it himself for 5 times what the kid is asking. That would be a nice bit of change. Even so, take his wife on that long vacation she has always wanted. 250, that's my final offer. 500, you have 3 seconds, and then I leave. 1, 2... Deal. The pawnbroker sighs as if he's been beaten. "You drive a hard bargain, kid. That's the way these things are played. Make the kid think he won, when all the while he's the one that truly is being robbed." The pawnbroker reaches for the bracelet, but the kid holds it out of reach. "First the money. The safe's in the back room. I'll be back in a second." "I'll come with you." The pawnbroker doesn't argue. It's understandable the kid doesn't trust him. If he trusted people, he would have been unwound by now. In the back room, the pawnbroker positions himself with the kid behind him so the kid can't see the combination of the safe. He pulls open the door, and then the second he does, he feels something hard and heavy connecting to his head. His thoughts are instantly scrambled. He loses consciousness before he hits the ground. The pawnbroker comes to some time later with a headache and a faint memory that something had gone wrong. It takes a few seconds for him to pull himself together and realize exactly what happened. That little monster conned him. He got him to open his safe, and the moment he did, he knocked him out and cleaned out the safe. Sure enough, the safe is wide open. It's not entirely empty. Inside is the necklace. Its gold and diamonds looking even brighter against the ugly gray steel of the empty safe. How much money had been in the safe? 1,500 tops. This necklace is worth 3 times that. Still a deal, and the kid knew it. The pawnbroker rubs the painful knot in his head, furious at the kid for what he did, and yet admiring him for the strangely honorable nature of the crime. If he himself had been this clever, this honorable, and had found this kind of nerve when he was a kid, perhaps he'd be more than just a pawnbroker. Number 27, Connor. The morning after the bathroom incident, they are roused awake by the fatigues before dawn. "Everybody up now, move it." They're loud, they're on edge, and they're the first thing Connor notices is that the safeties that on their belt of their weapons are off. Still blurry from sleep, he rises and looks for Risa. He sees her already being herded by 2 fatigues toward a huge double door that had been padlocked. Now the padlock is off. "Leave your things, go, move it." To his right, a cranky kid pushes a fatigue for tearing away his blanket. The fatigue hits him on the shoulder with the butt of his rifle, not enough to seriously wound him, but enough to make it clear to the kid and everyone else that they mean business. The kid gets down on his knees, gripping his shoulders and cursing, and the fatigue goes about his business of hurting the others. Even in his pain, the kid looks ready for a fight. As Connor passes him, Connor grabs him by the arm and helps him up. Take it easy, Connor says. Don't make it worse. The kid pulls out of Connor's grip. Get off me. I don't need your stinking help. The kid storms away. Connor shakes his head. Was he ever that belligerent? Up ahead, the huge double doors, are slid open to reveal another room of the warehouse of the Unwinds have never seen. This is one filled with crates, old airline packing crates, designed both in shape and durability to transport goods with air freight. Connor immediately realizes what they're for and why he and the others have been warehoused so close to an airport. Whatever they're going as air cargo. Girls to the left, boys to the right, move it, move it. There's grumbling, but no direct defiance. Connor wonders how many kids get what's going on. Forts or crate, boys with boys, girls with girls, move it, move it. Now everyone begins to scramble around trying to team up with their preferred travel companions, but the fatigues have never patience nor time for it. They randomly create groups of 4 and push them towards the crates. That's when Connor notices how dangerously close he is to Roland, and it's no accident. Roland moves close to him on purpose. Connor can just imagine it, pitch black in close quarters. If he's in a crate with Roland, he'll be dead before the takeoff. Connor tries to move away, but fatigue grabs Roland and Connor and 2 of Roland's known collaborators. You 4, that crate over there. Connor tries not to let his panic show. He doesn't want Roland to see. He should have prepared his own weapon, like the one Roland had concealed for him. He should have prepared for the inevitability of life or death confrontation, but he hadn't, and now his options are limited. No time for thinking this through, so he let his impulse take over and goes over in his fight instincts. He turns to one of Roland's henchmen and punches him in the face hard enough to draw blood, maybe even break his nose. The force of the punch spins the kid around, but before he can come back for a counter-assault, a fatigue grabs Connor and smashes him back against the concrete wall. The fatigue doesn't know it, but this is exactly what Connor wanted. You picked the wrong day to do that, kid, says the fatigue, holding him up against the wall with his rifle. What are you going to do, kill me? I thought you were trying to save us. That gives the fatigue a moment's pause. Hey, yells another fatigue, forget him. We gotta load them up. He then grabs another kid to complete the foursome with Roland and his henchmen, setting them toward a crate. They don't even care about the one kid's bleeding nose. The fatigue holding Connor against the wall sneers at him. The sooner you're in a box, the sooner you're somebody else's problem. Nice socks, says Connor. They put Connor in a 4x8 crate that already had 3 kids waiting to complete their quartet. The crate is sealed even before he can see who's inside with them, but as long as it's not Roland, it will do. We're all gonna die in here, says a nasal voice, followed by a wet sniff that doesn't sound like it clears much of anything. Connor knows his kid by his mucus. He's not sure of his name. Everyone just calls him the mouth breather, since his nose is perpetually stuffed. MB for short. He's the one who's always obsessively reading his comic book, but he can't quite do that in here. Don't talk like that, says Connor. If the fatigues wanted to kill us, they would have done it a long time ago. The mouth breather has a foul breath that's filling up the whole crate. Maybe they have found out. Maybe the juvie cops are on their way, and the only way to save themselves is to destroy the evidence. Connor has little patience for whiners. It reminds him too much of his younger brother, the one of his parents chose to keep. Shut up, MB, or I swear I'm going to take off my sock and shove it into your stinky mouth, and you'll finally have to figure out a way to breathe through your nose. Okay, sorry. Okay, let me know if you need extra socks. So the voice just across from him. Hey, hi Connor, it's Hayden. Hey Hayden. Connor reaches out and finds Hayden's shoe, squeezing it. The closest thing to a greeting in the claustrophobic darkness. So who's lucky number 4? No answer. Sounds like we must be traveling with a mine. Another long pause. Then Connor hears a deep, accented voice. Diego doesn't talk much, says Hayden. I figured. They wait in silence, punctuated by the mouth breather snorts. Sorry, I gotta go to the bathroom, and mumbles. You should have thought of that before you left, says Hayden, putting on his best mother voice. How many times do I have to tell you? Always use the potty before climbing into a shipping crate. Okay, sorry. There's some sort of mechanical activity outside. Then they feel the crate moving. I don't like this, whines Envy. We're being moved, says Hayden. By forklift, probably, says Connor. The fatigues are probably long gone by now. What was it that one fatigue had said? Once you're in a box, you're somebody else's problem? Whoever's been hired to ship them probably has no clue what's in the crates.